I'm Louis Lugo. This is my book, Crossroads, the Louis Lugo Story. And here today is Just Roll, Amber, and Kwame, who's my mentor. And we're here today to speak on Crossroads, the Louis Lugo Story. We're about to do a rap song for it, and Just Roll will speak on that. What did you think?
Well, it's just Joseph.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just Joseph.
And for me, I believe that the song it corresponds with the book as well. It is gritty. It tells a story from beginning to end, how God has transformed Louis Lugo from beginning to end, from when he was in the I would say
Street
life, or in the times where he sold drugs, how God transformed him from point A to point B to where he is today. I believe that God was always in his life, and from the book you can tell that God was always with him. So I believe that the song needs to reflect that, and also needs to just be real gritty, real hard hitting, because it tells a deep story.
So your wife here, Amber,
Yep.
She's going to be doing the singing.
Yes.
Well, Amber, how do you feel about singing on a song for, say, a book? And it's not just a book. It's a story of a young man who grew up in the projects, who grew up in the worst part of Brooklyn, New York, Kingsborough Projects. How do you feel about singing on a track like that brought this kid out of there?
Well, I feel honored, first of all, to be a part of such a wonderful project, to be sitting here with you, Pastor Lugo, and actually not just reading the book, but sitting with the person that it impacted. It means a lot to me. Singing for me is a total ministry. It talks about where a person has been, what they've been through, how God pulled them out. And sometimes the Lord is speaking to us, trying to bring us out of our situations, and we don't necessarily hear him. But when you sing, music tends to draw people in many ways, fashions, and form. You hear Amazing Grace, for instance. Everybody knows the song Amazing Grace. It has been sung in the midst of presidents and kings, and people around the world just love music. So for us, Joseph and I, to put words to your book and music to your book is such an honor for us, and we want to be. It's part of this living legend, of things that you've been through, and I think it will touch many people. If they never picked up the book, we want to be able to portray what you went through in the book through song.
And we just want to bring the book to life, and that's what the main part of our helping you with bringing this whole thing to reality or to the forefront is bringing that to life through song.
Through song and rap.
Well, you're hearing a lot when I'm speaking to Amber and
Just Joseph.
This is the book, but in actuality, it isn't about the book, and it isn't about me. Well, it's about how God has taken me from one level to another level, because yes, I was me. I was a little gangster, an idiot boy, someone away from God. I was a general in the devil's army, shot 5 times, stabbed a couple of times. I'd done my time in prison, a lot of years in prison, and even that didn't help me. Because as you know, and most of you do know, because I have on Facebook over 100,000 fans, that they know, who have read this book, they know that it really wasn't about me. It shows how God stays with you even in sin. How God, because my uncle, one of my uncles, Victor Maldonado, who's passed away, used to speak to me about God all the time. And I remember one time I came out of prison and he was just kept constantly talking to me about God. But I paid him no mind.
Yeah.
And even being when I was shot up, I paid my uncles no mind. But yet, God still stood in the back of my head because of all the time my family kept speaking to me about that. And it showed me that God, even in sin, was still with me.
Amen.
And what did you think, Kwame, when you read the book?
Somewhat like Amber was saying, too often we read about people after they've passed. But what I appreciated was that, as she said, you have a living legend. When the way you and I met was kind of...
Oh, that was God. That was God.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we met,
when we went back, because we had no idea our friendship would blossom to what it is, but yet it has done that. And as far as the book, it just really drew me in. I found myself looking for the very next chapter. After I finished one chapter, the next one pulled me right in. And so that's what I really appreciated. But as you stated, it wasn't to glorify you per se, but it was rather to glorify God. And it showed a person's real experience where you saw where they started from A, and then God just led you along the way to the point where you are now.
Amen.
And speaking of our friendship, when we first met, I had been through, my liver was bad. I was going to die. That cancer goes in your liver. I really don't want to speak too much about it because it's a horrible memory. But as I came out of it, when I went through the treatment and came out of it and was really depressed because I couldn't move around the way I wanted to, I was constantly tired. I kept thinking to myself, what next? What am I going to do? And I was real bad emotion. And here's Kwame, and he gives me a phone call. And we start talking because I wanted him to build me a pulpit. At the time, I wanted to build this church. I wanted to rent a building to have a church inside of. And I was going to do the church myself, but I was having doubts and I was, everything was like, no, I'm not going to do it. But when I started speaking to Kwame, my life changed that day.
Amen.
Praise God.
Amen.
Because that's when I started going to the Beacon of Hope, which is where we're speaking at now, is the Beacon of Hope. And at the time, I didn't know I would become a member.
Sure.
At the time, I just thought I would live at home, stay in my room, and become a hermit.
Wow.
And if I didn't take myself out, that was my state of mind. And that's when I met him. And we met over the phone.
Wow.
So it had to be God that told him to call me, because I didn't initiate the phone call. And from what he told me, tell him the story, how you found the phone. I mean, the phone, the paper.
Trying to recollect.
And
now.
it was months, mind you, before he called me, because when I spoke to someone about a pulpit at the Beacon of Hope, and he told me this guy built it, and the guy was Kwame, and I said, well, here's my card, give it to him, have him give me a call. And he didn't call me for months because I was going through treatment, and he had lost the number. When he found the number was the day I was at the worst mentally.
Yes.
I was at the worst. And that's when he had gave me that call. I'm sorry, I took the story away.
That's quite all right. As you stated, I couldn't find the number, and I'm the type of person, if I know I'm supposed to do something, it bugs me to no end until I accomplish it. And as you stated, I finally found the number after months of trying to figure where was this number. Found it was actually tucked away in my wallet somewhere. And as you stated, the Lord had me to find that number just at the right time. Sometimes we think we're supposed to do something at a certain time, and it's as if the Lord hid the number for X amount of months until the time that you needed it most. And perhaps had I called you back then, it wouldn't have meant much, or you may have not been in a state of mind or position to be able to receive it. So I'm just thankful the way God's providence works. It's no credit to me or to anybody. It's just the way that He designed for it to work out, and that's what was the result. I finally did call him, and the ironic thing was that we didn't even really talk about the pulpit, if you recall. It was more about, I think it started off
The beginning was the
prison
pulpit,
yeah,
and then
it
it
veered
changed.
over to something totally different. And I believe the Lord just simply used the pulpit to kind of connect us, and then He took it in the direction He really wanted. We started talking about a common love.
I was loving the prison ministry because before treatment, and we're talking 16 weeks of treatment to get my liver right, before treatment, I would go out in the streets and speak to the gangsters, Bloods, Crips, Gangster Disciples, Folks, Heavy Metal, Trojan, Toros, Phantoms. Those are biker clubs also. And I would speak to these guys because back in the days, they used to call me Warfare. When I first moved to Ohio, I had joined the Heavy Metal when they were over on the Short North. I would go back to the neighborhood out on Main Street, out in the Short North area, out in, wherever the gangsters was, Hilltop, it didn't matter to me. And I would be in the streets and I would talk to these guys. And my wife had a problem with that because a couple of the times, well, really it was twice, that a rival gang came by and they started shooting things up. And I dropped. One time we were over by Freebus and I was talking to some Blood members down by Livingston. And some other guys came by and they did some shooting over there. And I knew a couple of the guys in the car that did the drive-by. So that night I went to speak to the other gang. And I told them, I said, what are you guys doing? Oh, we saw you, Pastor. We saw you. And I said, but if you saw me, why did you do the shooting? And they said to me, we didn't shoot at you. Ain't nobody shot at you. We made sure we shot at the other guys. And bullets have no name.
That's right.
I've been shot 5 times. They took a contract out on my life, and the guys, there was 3 of them, they hit me up. So I know how a bullet feels. So I was upset with them. And I'm a 5th-degree black belt. I was ready to go to work. And they, thank God I'm a Christian man.
Amen.
Because, they could have dipped me in. I don't carry no weapons and stuff. My love for going out in the streets and talking to these guys. I wanted to be like David Wilkerson, who went out in the street. He saved my family. They were called the Mau-Maus back in the days. They even wrote a book called Crossing the Switchblade. Well, that gang, the people in that gang was my family. They were my uncles, and I followed in their footsteps. But I wanted to do like David Wilkerson did and go in the streets and speak to the gangs. And that's what I did. I went in the streets, but back then they didn't have much shooting. They had the rumbles, sticks and bats and knives, but they didn't have the shootings that they have now. And a lot of the pastors have gotten together and bum rushed me in a room one day, and my wife ratted me out. She told them, and they got together to speak to me about that, and they're the ones that brought it to light, that there are guns out there, whereas back when Nicky Cruz, Augie, my other uncle, Victor Maldonado. When these guys were out there, there weren't the guns.
That's true.
Yeah.
But me, I wanted to do that ministry. And I thought God had me in there because the bullets that happened didn't hit me. But then I had to do my liver treatment. And at my worst possible moment, when I finished that treatment, I was giving it all up. That's when he called me.
Amen.
So go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I didn't mean to.
That's quite all right. And I remember in our conversation, you were expressing how your wife was really fearful for you, and she was warning you, or trying to admonish you not to go out there in the streets because it was very dangerous. And so I think it was, again, God's providence working to, for one, perhaps answer her prayer, but also to protect you and to pull you, I hear out in the audience saying amen, to pull you away from that danger and also yet still allow you to work in the area that you love, and that's with those who oftentimes society looks as being undeserving or the outcasts, if you will, of society. So all in all, I think it, again, was God's providence just bringing us together in a way that neither one of us had any idea that the outcome would be what we're experiencing today.
Very true, very true.
And if I may say, where the ministry has kind of changed, where you can go out and minister to individuals on the streets, and there are those weapons. God has also given us a different weapon.
Amen.
Okay?
Amen.
There are still some ways that we can go out and minister to those individuals so that they can hear your story, so that they can make some decisions in their lives to change and turn around. And that is through the social media. You talked about your YouTube channel. We can use the weapon of social media to reach far beyond any walking that you could do out on the street. We can put it through song. Joseph and I have a huge passion to bring the trials and tribulations that people are going through music that they will actually listen to, and to minister to them, to wake them up. And that's what you did. You're bringing an awareness to the gang members that says, look, I was in that crowd that you were shooting at.
Wow.
A person that you knew, you were shooting at me, and I could have been taken out. Whether that's what you wanted to do, we saw you? Really? That just tells you the state of the world today.
That's true.
And they need to hear a word from the Lord. And so God woken up in your spirit again to tell your story, to tell people about Crossroads, so that, Elder Kwame, you came together and said, listen, this is something that you can still do. And it's such an inspiration to us that we can stir up our gifts again. And because we were saying the same thing, well, maybe nobody wants to hear what we have to say, because my husband also grew up in a very violent surroundings. Wow. And the way you guys came together and said, the story still needs to be told. There are still people who are looking for Jesus and who can still be saved.
Amen.
I believe that. So I feel safer now.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
The book now is going towards, what we're trying to do is do the rap song. They're going to perform the rap song, and he's going to write the rap song for the book. And then we're hoping that a brother we met named Lee does the movie.
Amen.
Okay.
Amen for that.
Amen.
And his assistant, Ron, will help him make the movie.
Amen.
That's what we're hoping for, and we have it in prayer. Another thing I wanted to say was Ohio Martial Arts Magazine. Ohio Martial Arts Magazine is Ohio Martial Arts Ministry. We do mainly ministry work. We help the community out. We do food drives, clothes drives, and we do prison ministry. We do the toy drives, And we believe in going around to the different neighborhoods and putting the kids inside the magazine. What that does is the child, because mostly we go to the ghetto and we put these kids that can't go to the bigger tournaments where the big magazines have kids inside of them. Well, we made our own magazine, and we put the kids inside there. Most martial arts schools, Christian martial arts schools, in fact, teach manners, respect, discipline, and self-control. But the added bonus is the character of Christ.
Amen.
And that's mainly what we deal with at Ohio Martial Arts Ministries. And we go around the state of Ohio and we teach different churches how to teach martial arts ministries. Because a lot of people just teach martial arts. Proverbs 22:6 says, train a child in the way he should go. When he is old, he will not depart from it. Well, if we got these kids in martial arts and they're learning manners, respect, discipline, self-control, and the character of Christ, they grow up to be better human beings.
That's right.
And that's what's really, you know, our mission. Yes, we're on a mission from God to save people, but we need to train our young, we need to train the babies in the way they grow up so they won't depart from it. And that's really what Ohio Martial Arts Magazine is about. And we're trying to mix that together with Crossroads, the Louis Lugo Story. So I hope you guys can get the book and learn a little bit about it. The back page has one of the people I was talking about, and that's Nicky Cruz and me. If you guys have heard his story, it's Cross and the Switchblade. And he has another book out called The Devil Has No Mother. And I'd like to thank, there we go with his name again.
Just Joseph?
Just Joseph, and Amber and Kwame. We like to thank them, and we like to thank you guys for listening in at Crossroads, the Louis Lugo Story. Get the book. I think you'll enjoy it.
Amen.